How you doing? This is Coach DeCarlo. Today we're going to talk about default future or future by default. In Scripture, we're told where there is no vision, people perish. And then it goes on to say, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Now, what does this mean? Many years ago, when I was in high school, there was a very promising athlete, and everybody knew that this person was going to go on to do great things. But in the interim, what happened was some events took place. He found himself hanging with the wrong crowd. And in this incident, what happened was the people that he was with got into an altercation with someone and someone got killed. He had nothing to do with the incident, but he was there. Because of that, he was considered an accomplice. He also received jail time. There was another young man around that same time. He also had a promising career ahead of him. He was always mindful of who he spent his time with. He did well and he succeeded. What's the difference? It says, where there is no vision, the people perish, and my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Both of these young men had an opportunity, and they had the whole world ahead of them. In talking to my clients, if they tell me where they've been and they tell me their story, if they continue on the path of what they've done in the past, what I can see in their lives is their default future or their future by default. Now, what about you, creators? Are you living in a future by default because of the world without, or are you continuously remaking your future by your thoughts, your words, your actions? It says that where there is no vision, the people perish. Let's talk about this. Where there is no vision. Now, when we're talking about vision, vision is a dream, a hope, a desired end, a future. In Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans you have for me. You have plans to give me a hope and a future and not to harm me, but to prosper me. So where there is no hope, there is no vision, there is no dream. If you can't go to the end, then you're going to be one of those who perish. When we're talking about vision, we're talking about a dream. We're talking about a future. A lot of times we look at where we're at the moment. And because of where we're at the moment, we say, this stuff doesn't work. My life is not where it should be. I was talking to a client the other day, and in our conversation, he says, listen, I know that I'm destined for greatness. But in being destined for greatness, I don't have the money that I'm hoping for. I've not established myself. I'm not where I desire to be. And understand, this is many people's story. And I was talking to this particular person because his desire is to be a coach. I said, listen, you still have to go through the bridge of incident and discover and to learn and to be built up so that you can be the person that you see yourself being in your future. I said, the money is there waiting on you. Know that, creators, whatever it is that you're seeking, it's seeking you. Like traveling, when we're going from one destination to another destination, we have to go through certain obstacles. Sometimes there's road construction going on. Sometimes there's detours that take place. But we don't get discouraged because of the detours. We keep moving. We take the detours. We see it as a slight delay, possibly. But a lot of times that detour is setting you up for your greatness. What is that hope, that dream, that future that you see for yourself? That's what you have to begin living from this moment right now. The people perish. When we're talking about the people, we're talking about the children of Israel. What does Israel mean? Israel simply means the man, the woman who walks as God. When you understand that you're a creator and that your world is shaped, fashioned, and molded by your thoughts, your words, your actions, your states, your feelings, when you begin to understand that and you begin to live in that state, or what I call occupying that state. Somebody asked me recently, what is it to occupy a state? To occupy a state, you clothe yourself, you put on the attitude, the disposition, the mindset of the person that you're becoming. If you want to be somebody who's a multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever that status is, then you begin clothing yourself in the mindset. Elon Musk was not always Elon Musk that we know today. There were times where he was broke, busted, and disgusted and wondering how this stuff was going to work out. But he had an end in mind. Bill Gates wasn't always the Bill Gates, but Bill Gates came from a middle class family and he just loved technology. He loved computers. Steve Jobs was not always Steve Jobs. What am I saying? You can't look at where you're at the moment and call it a failure unless you give up. Now, if you throw in the towel, you say this stuff doesn't work, I'm not doing it anymore, and then you start living in your default future, then of course, then your life is stopped at that moment to reproduce the lifestyle that you desire. As long as you're living and breathing, you can make a decision to do something else or to do something different. Begin to move from that default future to a future of your own making. When we're talking about perishing, we're talking about those who have no control, those who go back to what's familiar, those who neglect what it is they know to do. You're either growing or you're dying. You're either advancing forward or you're going backwards. There is no standing still. If you're standing still and you're stagnant, you're going backwards. We call that perishing. What are you giving your thoughts to, creators? And are those thoughts advancing you forward? Mr. Lindo will often say that we're always thinking ahead of the evidence. What evidence are you experiencing at this moment? If you're seeing that of one perishing, then you need only to begin changing your thoughts to the desired end. Whatever that desired end is, you begin living in that. You begin living from your vision. A lot of people have a problem with things like vision boards and things like that. If the tools that you're using work for you, then utilize those tools. You have to do what's best on your journey of transformation. Don't get so caught up, well, this person didn't use affirmation or this person never used a vision board or whatever the case. You have to do you. Whatever doing you looks like, you have to do what's going to allow you to become the best version of yourself. We're also told that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Creators, with all the information on the internet, there's no reason that we should lack knowledge. With all the truths that Neville teaches, that Mr. Lindo and I discuss on a weekly basis, with all of that information out there, there's no reason to be operating from a lack of knowledge. But let's talk about this briefly. The people of God are those who walk as God. And what that means is they understand that it's not on the without that determines who they will be, but the within. So it's the men, the women who walk, who live, who operate as God. At this moment, they're not operating like gods because they're being destroyed. So when we're talking about being destroyed, we're talking about those who are failing in their life, who cease to move forward, who are cut off, who fall. We're talking about those people who are not advancing, who are stagnant, going back to the previous, where there is no vision, the people perish. We go back to that and we discover because there is no vision, we're not operating from a place of knowledge. It says that the people are destroyed. So we talk about cutting off, failing, not advancing forward. It says that when you're walking in these principles, you should be the head, not the tail. But when you're failing to walk in these principles, you become the tail. You become the servant. You become that person that has to do what everyone around them says because you don't have your own voice. If you're not living the life of your dreams, If you're living a default future and you're on autopilot, scripture says that you're being destroyed, or some would even call that a living hell for some. And some of you can attest to that. But that can change in a moment when you begin to get a vision for your life and begin living from the end of that vision. Here we're told that the people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Let's talk about lack. Lack is to not have, without, none. When we hear the word lack, lack means the absence of. In this case here, the absence of knowledge. You can even know it, but to know it and not implement it, you might as well not know it. But let's talk about knowledge for a moment. Knowledge is awareness. Are you aware what you're thinking this very moment? And is that thought taking you where you want to go? Mr. Linder will often say, can you think your next thought? And he says, then don't stop. If you can think your next thought and you can make that next thought of lovely and of a good report, then you continue to do that. You begin to operate from that. You begin to occupy that state, as we stated earlier. You're going to see the outpicturing in your world. But many of us are not operating, discerning, aware, understanding, or even utilizing wisdom. Wisdom is the application of the knowledge. See, it's not enough to know it. You know, a lot of times people think that they can think one way but live another way and that there's no conflict. If you're living contrary to what it is that you know, scripture calls that evil. Now, that's not this bad word that's lurking in the dark. Evil simply means that you're missing your target. Lifestyle, as I often say, should follow your beliefs. So if you're operating from a place of wisdom, knowledge, then you begin to live according to what it is that you say that you believe. And as you live according to what it is that you say that you believe, you'll begin to not perish. You will become the head and not the tail. You will be above and not below. You will begin to be the person that you desire to be. You'll be the person that's not perishing, but prospering. You begin living the life of your dreams because you're operating and living from what it is that you know, knowledge, from a place of wisdom, the application of knowledge. Once you begin doing that and applying what it is that you know, the byproduct is the life that you desire. So if it is a loving relationship, if it is better health, if it is more money, whatever that thing that you desire, when you're living from a place of vision and knowledge, you'll have what you say. But remember this, creators, that only you can create your perfect world. Not God or man. Only you can create your perfect world. This is Coach DeCarlo saying have a great and abundant day.